The presence of Kate Donnelly's son had never been such a burden. Of course, she had never introduced him to his father before. Sure, she'd thought about what this moment might be like, what she'd say, and how Brett would react. She just never expected to look into the almost black depths of her son's eyes and feel a pinch of resentment, like it was Reed's fault she was currently driving down a dirt road toward Three Rivers Ranch. It wasn't Reed's fault, that much was certain. The vibrant 7-year-old had been asking about his dad for a few years now. Kate always told him Brett was overseas, being a hero by protecting the country. Not exactly a lie, though Kate didn't know all the details of Brett's service. She did know he'd left for his deployment to Afghanistan only 2 months after they'd been married. She knew she'd found comfort in the charms of another man and asked Brett for a divorce only 3 weeks into his deployment. And only a week after that, she found out she was pregnant. That effectively got rid of the other man, but also Brett, whose last email said he'd give her whatever she wanted. The back of her throat burned as hot as the July sun as she thought of her behavior over the past 8 years. "Time to move on," she muttered. "Find him, tell him, move on." "What, Mom?" Reed met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Nothing, baby." She painted on a smile to conceal the earthquake shaking her core. "We're almost there." "And I'll get to ride a horse?" "Maybe," Kate said. "I haven't been able to talk to my friend." Her voice sounded too low to be hers. Her stomach clenched as tears raged against the back of her eyes. She turned a corner on the dirt lane, and a house came into view. As she neared, she saw another home, this one much newer, to her right, facing the first. As if her insides weren't already rioting against her, now she had another choice to make. She parked near the older home. "Stay here, okay, baby?" She waited until Reed nodded, and then she slipped up the front steps of the first house. No one answered her constant knocking and repeated doorbell peals. She wiped the sweat from her forehead, cursing the summers in Texas. She thought of California, her destination, and how balmy an ocean breeze would feel about now. She retraced her steps to the car and drove the few hundred yards to the driveway of the second house. Ranch trucks filled the parking lot in front of the barns to her left, so someone had to be around. The sound of squawking chickens and a grumbling tractor met Kate's ears when she vacated the car again. No one opened the door at the second house, meaning she'd have to traipse around this ranch until she found Brett. She almost left right then, aimed her car west without a plan of ever returning, of telling him about Reed. But something pulled at her conscience, God, something. Kate knew it wasn't her conscience, and God had long abandoned her. The truth was, she needed the money her mother had left her, but she couldn't have it without telling Brett about Reed. And he has a right to know about his own son. Kate opened the driver's door and switched off the ignition. "Come on, baby. We have to go find someone. No one's answering the door." Reed unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car, slipping his trusting hand into Kate's. She squeezed harder than necessary, trying to ground herself for what she was about to do. She heard voices in one of the barns, so she steered Reed in that direction. "Excuse me?" she called once she had stepped out of the sun. Her eyes took their sweet time adjusting to the darker interior, but she could make out a man approaching. She almost bolted, her heart somersaulting through her chest, trying to break free of her ribs. "Can I help you, ma'am?" A similar southern accent to Brett's, but definitely not his voice. How she knew all this time, she wasn't sure. Kate blinked the whiteness from her eyes. "Yes, I'm looking for Brett Murphy. I was told he lives out here."
"Yeah, Brett. He's working on the cowboy cabins this afternoon."
Construction. Always construction. A sour taste coated Kate's mouth, though she hadn't been able to blame Brett for his profession. He was a builder when she met him, married him, and sent him off to war. His daddy owned the company, and he was a natural with his hands. She had used his job as a wedge between them unfairly, not that he knew that. He didn't know anything.
"Want me to take you back there?" the cowboy asked.
"Just point me in the right direction." The last thing Kate wanted was another witness to her confession.